residents of Turkana County from wherever you've come from. We really appreciate you, and we are glad that you've come to join us for this function. Those who are representing different organizations, we also acknowledge you, and we look forward to a very fruitful engagement. So ntampatia mwenzangu. As you know, we have all come here because of these regulations that have been displayed up here for the function of public participation on public benefit organizations regulations 2025. They are draft regulations that have been drafted under the auspices of the Public Benefit Organizations Authority, who are the main hosts for this event. So I'll give an officer from the authority a chance to introduce the members that have come with us from Nairobi, and then we'll pick the program from there. Sang, please. Kwanza majina yangu ni Victor Mbongi. So ni mwenzangu anaitwa Sang.
Thank you Vita. Kwa majina naitwa Isaiah Sang, the Director of Operations kutoka shirika la kusajili mashirika yasiyo ya kiserikali, ama na tunabadilisha tunaita mashirika yanayo, hiyo jina lingine lilikuwa ngumu, faidi umma, jamii ama umma. Yeah, it's going to be a very long and interesting discussions to define the space that we are now operating in. So we are very happy to be here. Tumekuwa kwa hii shughuli ya kuchukua maoni kutoka kwa wananchi na mashirika ambayo tayari yamekuwa registered, ili kuelewa ni nini wanataka iwe katika sheria hii, regulations hii ambayo inakuja kuregulate the sector. So tumekuwa kwa hii space, we have been crossing the country. We started on 19th of June in Garissa. Tumepitia Meru, tumesikia maoni ya watu wa Meru, tumeenda Nyeri, tumeenda Machakos, Mombasa, Lamu. Phase 2 ndio tumeanza hapa Lodwar, because we understand the interests and the voice of the people of Lodwar, the civil society organizations in Lodwar, the NGOs in Lodwar, and the larger Turkana county. So from here in Lodwar, we'll proceed to Eldoret, then we go to Kakamega, then to go to Kisumu, then Nakuru, then you finalize in Nairobi in getting the views of the members of the public regarding these new regulations. So tumekuja a team kutoka Nairobi. I wish you stand up and introduce yourself. Watu wasikie sauti yenu. So we start with Masi.
Hamjambo. Okay, good morning. My name is Masi Soy. I am from the PBO Regulatory Authority. I serve in the legal department, and we are happy to be here to get your views on the regulations. Asante na karibuni sana.
Good morning. Kwa majina ni Eric Mudhomi Mutua. I'm a senior analyst kwa PBORA.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning once again. My name is Josephine Nabalaya Wanjala. I'm in charge of monitoring and evaluation at the Public Benefit Organization Regulatory Authority. Asanteni.
Thank you. Pia tumekuja na team from the media. Just your name, watu wawasikie. Hata kama uko nyuma ya kamera.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Julius Wairoma. I'm in charge of the media live streaming, and I'm from Nairobi, Information.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bernard Chiriot, camera person.
Nzuri kujua wale tumekuja nao, si ndio? Yes. We are also privileged. We have our director, a board member in the PBORA, ambaye amekuja na sisi ili pia yeye aweze kushuhudia watu wa Turkana wanasema nini kulingana na hii regulations. So I'll welcome the Director Ndeti. The Director Ndeti will welcome the Star County Commissioner for Lodwar to also give his views and welcome all of us. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, my name is Nzioki Ndeti, and as you have heard, I'm a board member of the authority. I stand here today to represent the entire board of the authority and our Chairman, Honorable Mwambu Mabonga. And we have come here, as it has been mentioned, to do the public participation. This participation is in line with the Constitution of Kenya, to hear the views of the public, through the sector, and you being members of the sector and the public. That is why we are here, to harmonize the two sets of the act, the old act and the new act, which has meant it to the public benefit organization regulatory authority, as it were. That is a former NGO board. So thank you very much for your showing up today for this function. I take this opportunity now to call upon Mr. Hilary Odhiambo, the Assistant County Commissioner, Turkana, to open this forum for us. Thank you very much and feel welcomed. Asanteni sana.
Makofi.
Makofi tafadhali. Hamjambo nyi wote?
Hatujambo.
Hamjambo tena. Mnafurahia kuwa hapa? Watu wa Turkana. Matana bo. Bwana Director and the team, as you can see, we have a very vibrant team, and we are looking forward for a very, very, very vibrant participation. First of all, my name is Odhiambo Hilary Odhiambo, Assistant County Commissioner, representing the County Commissioner, Turkana County. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here today to discuss the draft Public Benefit Organization Regulation draft, that is 2025. This regulation is a critical framework that will shape the operations and impact of PBOs in our country. As we embark on this important conversation, let us recognize the vital roles played by the PBO in the advancing social welfare, promoting human rights and accountability to economic development. I believe that this draft will aim to provide clarity, consistency, and accountability in the registration process, its operation, and the oversight of the PBO. As Bwana Director have said, over the next few weeks, this team, I don't know whether this is the only team or there's another team, they will engage in a thorough review of the draft regulation, seeking inputs from the diverse stakeholders who are present here to give their opinions. And as we say that every opinion is always important and accountable, and we, as the team, we expect you to give us your comments. Familiarize yourself with the draft. If you see any lacunas, feel free to give back your feedback, and we assure you that they will be accounted for. The goal of this draft is to create an enabling environment that empowers PBOs to thrive and effectively serve the needs of our communities. Let us work together to ensure that these regulations are fair, effective, supportive of the important work carried by the PBOs. And with those few remarks, I believe that I have now set a stage that will give a constructive discussion that emphasizes the importance of PBOs and the need for a well-crafted regulation that will govern the legal system. And I believe, ladies and gentlemen, with those few remarks, I want to welcome the team from Nairobi to Turkana and all the participants from Kakuma, all other sub-counties within Turkana County. Let us have a healthy discussion and let us have a draft that will not only in future secure the life of PBOs. With those few remarks, I return the mic to the operators and let me declare this public participation officially open. Thank you very much.
Makofi.
Thank you very much, SSC. I wanted to get that salamu. Mata. Yes. Thank you, thank you. I think itabidi niandike ndio nisisahau. Mata. Yes. Thank you very much. We are here together use public. Tumeumia lakini tuna adjust. Yes. But we'll be okay. So to help us in this process, because we wanted to get an independent view from the public, apart from us, an independent view from the public, we were able to get a consultant to help us in this process. So the consultant is by a friend here called Victor with his team. Maybe you'll introduce yourself and also now pick it from there. Take us through the process, take us through the background of what happened until where we are today, then now guide us on how to see the feedback from the members. So mimi nataka kuomba hivi, tukue free, hakuna, it's a free space. Tuongee, give your views, let it be recorded. Wale ambao wako na open or written memorandums, you're also free to share, that we're able to document everything and not miss any views from the members of the public and the already registered NGOs. So thank you very much, Victor, and welcome all of you.
Asante. Tumpigie makofi sana. Vile ambavyo wamesema, kwa majina naitwa Victor Umbongi. I'm part of the team that has been working with the authority in trying to come up with the regulations. By profession, I'm a lawyer. We have other team members that were not able to travel here, but we will meet as we go along. Like my colleague has explained, this is one of those forums that was specifically set aside. Like the other forums, we've been clustering. Tumekuwa tukileta many counties together, and then we cluster them, and then we hold a forum. But for Lamu and Turkana, they are the only counties that we've had to hold specific forums for, because we recognize the important role you play in this sector in the country. So tumefurahi kufika hapa, kujiunga na nyinyi, and we hope that we'll get meaningful feedback from you. So before we proceed, I would want us to do some housekeeping rules so that we know how we proceed forward. First, I'm told that the washrooms, vimba vya usafi, because you get out, you turn left, right, sorry, you go straight, ziko pale mwisho. Secondly, we requested a few team members to come and help us so that everybody who participates in this forum is able to get what we came here to do, and they're also able to give their contribution. So kwanza, in terms of sign language, we have our sister, is called Karen Nakior, is helping with sign language interpretation. So if there is anybody who's behind there who would want, because we don't want her to stand throughout the session, hatutaki asimame muda wote, so you can move in front so that you can fully benefit from that service. Secondly, we have kwa ishara ya mkono kwanza, wacha nione wangapi wanaelewa Kiingereza. If we conduct this forum in English throughout Kiswahili, I presume the same crowd. English. Oh, kumbe elimu imefika kila mahali sasa. Tuko sawa? So who would want specifically for these proceedings to be done in Turkana? So tukichanganya Kiswahili, Kiingereza iko sawa. But for the sake of ensuring that everybody is part of the process, we have our sister here. She's there, Mary Tioko. Maybe she will come at the beginning for like 5 minutes to explain the objectives of why we are here in Turkana so that we also utilize our services. But ule pia atasikia tumesema kitu kwa Kiingereza, Kiswahili, Kiingereza haikuingia, Kiswahili haijaingia na anataka iseme kwa Kiturkana, she's here specifically for that. She'll be able to help us with that. So we appreciate you for coming. And then we have one of us from here, Turkana County, is called Brian Kimgor. So he's also helping us to take down what we deliberate on this forum. So nawashukuru nyote. Like we said at the beginning, I would like her to come and explain briefly in 5 minutes why we are here and how we intend to conduct these proceedings. So, so first, like we've said, tuko hapa kwa ajili ya mapendekezo ya kanuni za sheria. We're here for the sake of engaging in a public participation forum for the purpose of getting input on draft regulations. Those draft regulations are supposed to operationalize an act of parliament that was passed in 2013 called the Public Benefit Organizations Act, the PBO Act of 2013. So, in terms of hierarchy, katika sheria za nchi, kuna katiba juu kabisa, alafu kuna sheria ambazo zinapitishwa na bunge. They come second. Hizo sheria za bunge zinaweza kuwa zinapitishwa kwa maybe to regulate the health sector. Kuna finance bill ile inajulikana sana siku hizi. And now an example is the Public Benefit Organizations Act. Hizo ni sheria zinapitishwa na bunge. So why zikipitishwa na bunge, then sometimes it becomes necessary to pass regulations because hizi sheria zinapitishwa wakati mwingine ni ngumu kuprovide for everything that is required in law. So for certain procedures, for instance, an act of parliament could say we have 4 types of public organizations you can register, but it does not provide the procedures, how to register, what forms do you need, how much should you pay. You cannot find that easily in an act of parliament. But the regulations are passed so that they help us to provide for those procedures in law. So I would like you to say what I'm saying next in Kiturkana so that everybody understands. So wakati sheria ilipitishwa, Public Benefits Organizations Act, there was a lag, a period that passed before we could embark on operationalizing that act. The reason it was not operationalized immediately was because we did not have regulations. So there are reasons that we'll explain as we go by. Some of them were the lack of goodwill. There was different views on what regulation should be put in place. But eventually, that process stalled. So from 2013, it was almost like 12 years since the act was passed. So imechukua muda sana, but under the auspices of the president, when there was a UN conference that was held in Nairobi, Mr. Kasema anataka the civil society to have the space, civil society and public benefit organizations to have the space to carry out their mandate. And that space could not be actualized before we passed the Public Benefit Organization regulations. So, you can say in Turkana that tumekuja hapa kwa ajili ya fahamisha wananchi ni nini, what are the provisions of the Public Benefit regulations, and then taking their views regarding those regulations. Na hizo regulations, generally they used to be regulations that govern the NGO sector. That's how it used to be known. But now that sector is going to be called Public Benefit Organization
Asante sana, naitwa Mary Tioko. Ni member wa Turkana Gender and Child Protection Network. I'm also a journalist based here in Lodwar, who's running a radio station as the director. Jokono SBT Berinya Apoloni ni pontere neke rayak te yeneng talio lukolongo ewaki ni rais loyoko eke okimoyen tama echamiti elostengareni akriki alungurata noi nakatana jokotau. Kolose ke arai na jokotau dang achuna kana dang abeyo arai na jokotau kichir bolos bete tichi lo chelo ngarakuto na ngolenyang iyang ngolenyang na Apoloni de yakasta na jokotau de yena bona chena kanisai. Noi arai kole berengina tumnere etali ngolo tamarai etali nyeli buntiro bong rotini lo subaknere tichi borulo wagni tangare keneta na chiki ne abala tunga ne ko to kana kama to kana ngita lu chulu beyo etal lo kwae ne limuner lo beate esubaknyo kwai arai berekine ponter ne ke arai akite yene tunga tamari etali ngol na ko lo wagnere ek moyeni emam tani aroto kingareni tosbake tich poterenyo ayi yakading rotin lu chulu beyo le regulations Lotola joko no ye ke ni banda tamarai e chametu tunga ye te damu rate ko ya soma tangolo te chuare bukine to bukine yanai tamarai eta ko balai anna bo te rotundu chol ko la grane te kechi arena bo ngol ko la seu na ngola nyanga tol tok bokno sara kuno noi luchelo wala ngatalio ngi luchena bole be yolo ke ne nga kro e asubaru e tich kangolo tiendre atamari asubak nyo kwai tamara ke chi to subak serbong talio ai luko moyi wagne tengro tin lo subak ndre tal loko lo nyata la lo be mo ngola nyata apung ken lu piani e abu ken na ko na ke lu piani ka yang talu le mun te ke chi tamara to subak neta go pere ngro chini lo subeta tana joko ta na bo luche na bo le biyo asibios na organization na yako na chik atuko to na yako na pele mo te kuniyo akampuni na de yakastoma na dakarin na kijijorlo na to malo taunya luko to na turkwan de yakadanga kampuni na keche mer na da bona na da joko tauna sampai poni to koneke reberke ni Apoloni ngor kirarang ata metayok nyok ngoni to sobai nyukilimun tungone etal loko atike ni kisadang ego go kisi etal tina ata mari bale etalai bale subar no moye subare tichi loko kwai anu boge yakada ngakoro ke ngone ya takisi ateli mutu ke yena banga chini yakada lo tal ko ngwa tamar nyu kwai ne joka telemasi ornu kwai teri kisulo pituloko kera rai to anda ngunyen ti ada gede ngata meta ke ngisi anu hotere lo stoke chi sekinto ana kaunti anache apoto konene ke lo trukan akaunti na yoko naka ada ke kera ngata meta yoko dai buak na dangkop ya rak mor kana kana kaunti anache taka kamega anta kaya balang idiolo dio tolos tengar ental doret anu bona yakona alturkwan nyen teklimu ngone alto metal loko e boy kino satike ni kisi e gogo kisi atike e joka ngarakini ngone ya alto mangatu ko toyoka aka mpuno na yakona chikina film kiti ngone ya ke ngarakini ya ori orokno nyoy chenye kata ngone aguaken arang turkwana nyoni kata ngone ali amar ori kata ka teriki sulo petali krik ngone ko ngati na tamari e yakata ngakrona ngaturkwana dai ke untung turkwana dai to ilikech e wa ke ngone dai amarakes to ma lotal loko isi ponter neke ni Apolon atol urus ko ngalu kuna bokian dang mama ya mar acha meta katen neke yakaten ngaka makanan kurung manta ka balay ton ko tere mere tali mere yo ko bon ko tene niya mere talo mere yo ko bon mere ngka ngapulok ngicheta ka ngopro beta katen ngaropia na chun na bokeji kitian akro etal achi apa ka yo ngopita kana bon yen na rabo yo ngonyeli mun ya limun tetal loko iya ngacho krona ta ka guaken data mari e joko te yana ngatunga dang anu moye limuni etal loko nyata mai to ani ne yeni e kana Nairobi etal loko e gela te yena tamari yena kita tamari aye ko la dalo tali abu ko la de waki e to illo ka to mi etal loko ise yakare to mane kena ol naka kwarnaka e be yongo ne dango atike nyikisi atulur ko ngana bolu ko ngarti ngetai ateli mutu ber dango ne yechen ko nyata tamari e ye mo chogole to mane ke etal loko e jok ateri kisi ani ke rono atele masi berni rono e tenikisi ko nenia ngidi berni Apollo yakar neke e joko noy
sana. Pige makofi tena Mary. Sasa kwa hiyo maneno yote Mary amezungumza, mimi nimesikia tu moja. Ejoka. Asante sana, Mary. Asante sana. So I will take the next like 20 minutes to kind of give you a quick brief of what the contents of these regulations are. So ukiangalia wakati mlikuwa mnafanya registration, you are given some documents. So the first document is this Public Benefit Organizations Act 2013. So this is an abridged version. Yani, hii ni muhtasari tu of what that regulation provides. It's a quick summary. Then, so hii ndio ile sheria ya bunge ilipitishwa 2013. Then there is this bigger document. These are the regulations that have been developed under this Act of Parliament. So hata hii ikiwa ndogo kidogo, this is the main law that governs the public benefits organization sector now. And these are the proposed regulations. So this is what has brought us today here, but it's related to the act itself. Then kuna hii form mmepewa imeandikwa public views form. So for those who would want to submit their views in written form, maybe they did not get a chance to do it before, it was also available in soft. You can fill your views here, and then we will collect the forms. This is our registration desk there. You can take the forms. After umejaza hiyo form, unaweza kuipeleka kwa ile desk yetu, our officials will accept it there. Finally, there is this public participation assessment questionnaire. Hii ni kutuambia, after we have concluded this exercise, what was your experience? What would have done better? Ni nini mngependa kirekebishwe? Just giving us feedback so that we continue to improve the kind of services, especially for this kind of forums. Ni nini mngetaka iletwe, maji mingi, chai, nini. Those you can put them in these forms. So that is for improvement of service delivery. So this other document, this one, the Public Benefit Organizations Regulatory Authority, this is a document that explains what the PBORA is. Like, this is the authority that governs the public benefit organization sector. It is the authority that is charged with registration and management of the sector generally. It's a regulator. So it's the one that has been charged with also the responsibility of spearheading the development of these regulations. So hii ndio ile idara ya serikali inashughulika na mambo ya mashirika ya kijamii ambayo yanapeana faida kwa jamii. So those are the documents that you have in case you are wondering. So you can use them as we have guided you. So quickly, I'll go through a presentation here that will give us a quick summary of what is contained in those documents. They were also available online. So for those that have already had a chance to look at them, we'll collect, and you've had time maybe to put together a memorandum. We'll give you an opportunity to present that to the authority and at a later stage. But for now, we go straight to the presentation. So we can go to the next page. So a brief background on the development of these regulations. So like we said, the act was passed in 2013. But for some reasons, at that time there was a lot of suspicions about what government is intending to do in the sector. There was also different views on how we should go forward as a sector. So there was a position that was taken by government and the organizations that umbrella organizations that were in the sector. So it became difficult to conclude that process. There were other, fights that went on at that time because there were divergent views on how to move the sector forward. So the act was passed in 2013, and it didn't commence because there were no regulations, and there was also some court injunctions that prevented the commencement of the act, because some of the players in the sector felt that they were not ready or they were not comfortable with implementation of the act. So That's how we ended up with two drafts. One that was spearheaded by the sector, another one was spearheaded by the agents of government. So that brought a bit of confusion also on how to harmonize those sectors, and there was no agreement on it. So when the new momentum to draft the regulations was picked again by the authority with the incentive of the backing of the president, it became necessary to first harmonize the two drafts that were drafted back then so that we can have one harmonized draft that takes into account the views of the different stakeholders. Yani zile nakala mbili ambazo zilikuwa zishatengenezwa tayari ziletwe pamoja so that everybody is on board. So that happened in that May conference, UN Civil Society Conference in Nairobi, where the president made a promise to operationalize the act. So that is when the operationalization of the act began. But of course, the president gave a go-ahead for the act to be operationalized, but still, we didn't have the regulations. We still only had the act. So a few things could be done, like establishing the tribunal, but for the nitty-gritty details, we still needed to go ahead with the development of the regulations. So why was it necessary? Like we've said, before the Public Benefit Organizations Act, there was an NGOs Act that had been there for a number of years. All of us that are in the sector know what the provisions of that act are, and that it was the main law governing the sector. But because of developments in global space, the best practice from different jurisdictions, it's a sector that evolves fast. Generally, in other jurisdictions, it's called the charity sector. Over the period of time that the NGO Act was in place, a lot of international developments have also taken place. As you can recognize, donor funding has gone dwindling over the years. The nature of activities, or even charity activities that were relevant in the 1990s, when we were fighting for civic space, for freedom, for democracy, those kind of objectives have also evolved. So it became necessary to come up with a law that speaks to the challenges, the contemporary challenges in the sector, that addresses the contemporary challenges in the sector. So that's why it became necessary to come up with a new regime to govern the sector. Like I said before, there's a time, the reason why these regulations did not pass, partly because there was a suspicion or a feeling within the sector that government was trying to claw back the space for freedom of association and freedom of assembly and freedom of conscience. So with these regulations, government also took a different approach. It says the government took an approach of freeing the sector from over-regulations by government and over-dictating how the sector should regulate itself by entrenching that principle of self-regulation. So this new regime has aspect of self-regulation for the sector. How can they organize themselves? How do they come together? What are their internal procedures? How can they govern themselves without government coming to dictate who are your officials, or how do you remove your officials? So the government wants to cede that space to the public benefit sector so that individual organizations, forums, federations, they have the freedom to organize themselves internally, and they face government at the point of registration. Once they have organized their affairs internally, including prescribing the standards for their internal operations. Finally, so that the government is able to facilitate the sector. For instance, you find like a donor community saying they want to deal with registered organizations that government can do that is to have a properly regulated sector where when they ask for compliance, a donor comes that they want to engage with compliant organizations. They have a proper register where they can say we can speak with authority that this organization is registered with us, and from the records that the government has, they can be able to give that donor an assurance that if you deal with this organization, it's a properly accountable manner. So those are the main objectives that necessitate the reforms in that sector. So like you said, now once we deal with those objectives, then in these particular regulations, we want to see what has been addressed in them. So the main thing that has been addressed is to streamline the registration and compliance processes in the draft regulations. These are proposed regulations. They have not become regulations yet. So the other issue that has been dealt with is that issue that I've already mentioned of transparency and accountability. And the other issue is to promote collaboration between government and civil society. Once you've organized yourselves internally, then how do you relate with government? How do you engage with them? How do you register with them? And how do they recognize you? So those are the issues that have been dealt with in the regulations. So key definitions under the Act, under the regulation, sorry. So like we've said, we've now moved from NGOs, we are talking of public benefit organizations. Public benefit organizations is any organization that is giving a service that or is engaged in activity that have a general public good. Like they're involved in activities not for self-benefit. This question has been asked many times. Unlike self-help groups, public benefit organizations are people that come together with the object of undertaking activities that have a public good. So a public good is like what? Like here in Turkana, I can give a good example. There are people undertaking activities by providing meals to children in schools. That's a public good. They are not in that sector so that they enhance the economic status. They have not come together with the objective. Even that, if that happens, that is not the primary objective for the people that come together. They have come together to sort out a need in community that ordinarily will be sorted out by government. But because the reach of government is limited by resources and manpower, certain people come together and say, we'll address hunger here, we'll address education there, we'll provide water here. So those are some of the public benefits that are recognizable by the law. So these regulations, they propose the definitions as you've seen there, that it has to be a voluntary group of people that have come together for the object of addressing a public need. So whether those people are organized locally, internationally, or they have a similar objective that brings them together, which is a public good. So the definitions, key definitions in that act, in the regulations, are public benefit organization. So this defines the primary unit of what is a public benefit organizations. Then what qualifies to be a public benefit activity. Like ni nini ile unaweza fanya isemekane that you are engaging in a public benefit activity. Not everything will qualify. Like we've said, if you come together, mseme mnataka kufuga kuku, ndio mkiuza mayai ama mkiuza wale kuku, mnunue gari mfanye matatu. That will not qualify as a public benefit. So the regulations define what will qualify, and they provide in a schedule, which is Schedule 6, the 6th schedule of the Act. those activities are listed, the classification of what would qualify as a public benefit are provided there. So you will see them there. And then what a register means, like once you get registered under these regulations, then you will be entered in a government register saying that you are a public benefit organization. So that is defined there. That register is critical because that's where the record of all registered public benefit organizations will be found. So these ones we have already kind of dealt with them. The registration, summary of the key provisions. What is provided in the Act is registration and deregistration. Governance requirements. What are the basic minimum requirements in terms of how you set up a public benefit? What are the basic minimum requirements are dealt with there? Reporting obligations. Once you register, as you said, government has tried to remove its hand from the affairs of the management, internal management of public benefit organizations. So serikali itaki kuhusika sana on how you come together. The government is more interested, once you come together and you've met the requirements of the Act and the regulations, how then you relate with government. So the Act provides for that. What are your reporting obligations? How do you report? How do you interact with government? What kind of reports are you required to submit to government for you to be compliant, to be a compliant PBO? Then there's sanctions and appeals process. The Act provides for a mechanism when you are not happy by a decision that has been made by the authority. As we have said, the agency that is going to regulating this sector is the Public Benefits Organizations Authority. You've made an application for registration. You feel like you complied with every requirement, but they have declined your application. What are your remedies? So the regulations and the Act provide for what are your recourse. Unaweza kufanya nini? Wamekataa uamuzi, umefanya ombi la kusajiliwa, but wamekataa uamuzi. What can you do? What are your remedies? So those are provided in the Act. So now we go to specific provisions in the Act. The most important one, like we said, is the registration process. So the organizations already registered as far as NGOs, community-based organizations, trusts, foundations. So if they want to come to be registered under this Act, they want to shift their registration. What are the requirements? And for those ones that are new, those people that are still contemplating on registering a public benefit organizations, what are the requirements? So the first one is to do an M-search. Just the previous slide before that. An M-search. So this one, you give the authority a minimum of 2 names. Then they do a search. If that name is available, then it will be reserved for you. And then it will be reserved for a period of 30 days for you to be able to organize your affairs so that you can do the registrations. In many ways, that's similar to what was already provided in the NGOs Act, but the period for registration has been shortened. Now it's possible to do an application for an M-search and get it immediately, and then proceed to registration. Next slide. So, under the Public Benefits Organizations Act, it is possible to register like 4 types of public benefit organizations. The first one is the National Public Benefit Organization. This one is an organization that operates nationally. It's registered in Kenya and operates within the boundaries of the Republic of Kenya. So that's a national public benefit organization. Then there is bestowed. This provision for bestowed is for those organizations that were already registered, but under different regimes. They were NGOs, they were CBOs, but now they want to shift and be registered as public benefit organizations. So they're not doing any new registration, but they want to be recognized as public benefit organizations. So, in other words, they are moving from one regime, legal regime, to another. So they will be restored with public benefit status. Then there are international public benefit organizations. Those of you in the sector know that there are organizations that have presence in more than one country. Maybe they're registered in Canada, in the UK, but they want to have a presence in Kenya, or they want to contribute. They don't want to operate locally. They're not doing any implementation of projects locally, but they want either to sponsor local organizations or to partner with local organizations that are in the line of business in which they are doing in the other country, or they just want to be donors. So those ones are international. Example international, other organizations are already registered elsewhere, but they come to Kenya and need donors. They are not partnering with local entities, but wanataka kujihusisha wenyewe in a new venture of implementing projects within the country. Those ones are called exempt international organizations. So that's what the law provides. And these regulations provide the procedure for each of on how you can register those four types of organizations. So once you have identified what you are, you want to register national international, you want to move lanes and get restored with a public benefit status, then there are certain minimum requirements that you will have to meet. So they are slightly different for each of those categories, but the minimum requirements is that the regulations now, they provide a form in which you can present your application to the authority. That prescribed form is the standard way of communicating your intention to register to the authority. Then you need to have a constitution. And you come together and you say you want to register PBO. You need to have a constitution. Then you need to have, like you said already, you need to have a name in mind of the organization which you want to register. Then you must demonstrate to the authority kwamba mlikaa chini na wale wenzenu mkapitisha uamuzi wa kuregister public benefit organization. So the minutes of that meeting need to accompany the registration, the particulars of the office bearers, wale officials or where they from. By what's the of the decision? The decision that now you recognize as a benefit organization. We have comes responsibilities. Privileges. One, you now need to play with laws that benefit regulations, if they are passed by Parliament as proposed or as will be amended as we go by. So you need to comply with all those laws and any other written law, as because now you become a legal person. Once you get registered, you become a legal person and you need to comply with any other written law under the Republic of Kenya. So just before that, I want to point previous. Okay. So then most importantly, now you become eligible to benefit from your status as a public benefit organization. Like you said, this sector is supporting government in providing some basic services. So one for the government is giving us several basic services can apply for you become exempt for you to be exempt. Because now some government in Nigeria development should be so you become eligible to benefit the public benefit. One of the is that the second that you itself. But pia inawezekana baada ya kusajiliwa ukakuwa mjeuri, ukasema utakuja provide mnafurahia pesa ambayo ulikuwa umepata kutoka kwa mfadhili. So if you do some of those activities that go beyond the scope of what is permitted under the law, then you may be you are like the opportunity. But it's about one person. So that's the thing. The terms of you that but all these things is for what you what the lawsuit to So if you fail to comply, there will be processes in terms of giving you notice, telling you that after reviewing your activities, you're not doing what you were registered to do. So before you get to suspension and deregistration, there will be a process to it. So some of cancellation or suspension from the register is if you engage in your documents of registration or any document that you give to the authority, it is the authority realizes that you made some false representations, like ulidanganya katika zile forms za kuomba usajiliwe. That may lead to your removal from the register. And of course, if you are registered and then you fail to undertake the activities for which you are registered to do, after some time, it's not immediately, you may be removed from the register. But that's depending on the period which you will take before undertaking any public benefit activity. Next slide. So we said at the introductory stage, tulisema government was trying to remove its hands in the management of the sector. Those suspicions about what is the intention of government. For those reasons, the government, the act that was passed with with the contribution of the civil society sector, the NGO sector in large, they tried to entrench that principle of self-regulations. How is that supposed to be achieved through the act? So the government recognizes that as you undertake your activities in the sector, kuna other organizations that you want to coordinate with. You want to come together, either because you undertake activities in the same sector, or because you operate in the same geographical area. So you may need to come together for the purposes of coordinating your activities, or for the purposes of harmonizing how you pursue your objectives within a given locality, or for sharing of information within the sector. So you are allowed, once you register a public benefit organization, to come together, a minimum of 10, to form a forum. So 10 is a minimum. You can be more. But if you fall below 10, then you according to the proposals, then you can qualify as a forum. But if you come together as 10 public benefit organizations, then you can register as a forum. Like I said, the registration, the membership of whether the decision of whether you want to join a forum or not, it's a voluntary. You are operating in Lodwar, as a operate independently as a public benefit. Nobody will force you to join a forum. But if you choose to form a forum, then you are free to do so, as long as you are able to meet the minimum number of PPOs that are required to form a forum. But if you do not want to join a forum, then you can operate independently, and then the authority will recognize you as such, as an individual or public benefit organization. So, for you to register as a forum, there will be certain requirements. Like if you want to be recognized by the authority as a forum, then that forum, of course, even for your own good within the forum, you must agree on how you are going to conduct your activities as a forum. First, then you will need to have a name for the forum. Then you need to have a constitution that guides how you conduct your affairs within the forum. So once you get registered, once you have those minimum requirements, then you can register those documents with the authority, so that you are recognized as a forum. But like I say, this is an aspect of self-regulation. Haina faida yoyote kwa serikali, but the only benefit is that you will be recognized as a group of PBOs operating within a given location, or within a certain sector. Like now, I'm told the angels operate within their sector, their own forum. So from most likely it will be transferred, come from that region. I think I'll control that kind of thing. So what will be for us. So for example, so from like we say, and for your sake, there are meets of the meeting that resolved for and you it goes to compose of individual organisms, then you need to this of circle also independent organisms that resolved for. So to that so we have the series upgrade connection. You said minimum 10 for but it could also be necessary, maybe because you operate in the same region, to have a federation of public benefit organizations. So this location, but they are in different sectors, but they still want to come together. Minimum of 5 forums to form a federation. So you can have a federation, it will be a federation of forums. So we've said there's a public benefit organization, it has joined a forum. This forum has joined with other forums to form a federation. So you'll need 5 minimum forums to form one federation. But like we said, there can be more. So the registration requirements for registration of a federation, they are similar to the ones that we've already said of registration of a forum. You need to do it in the prescribed form. You need a name. You need to have the minutes of the meeting that sat and agreed that now we need to form a federation. You need a constitution, because once you come together, as you know, if you do not come with clear rules on how you're going to engage, there will be problems down the line. When people want to leave, when people want to join, when people want to be represented, want to get represented to represent them in different activities, there will be problems. So that's why the authority is not giving you a constitution. They are telling you, give us your constitution that you've agreed to govern you, so that we register it, and if there is a problem, at least we have the official record and we can say, on this one, this is what you agreed. This is how you agreed to deal with your problems or to deal with this kind of issue. Then, so once we said ukishasajiliwa na serikali, utakuwa na utaratibu fulani ama kutakuwa na kanuni fulani lazima utimize. Hizo kanuni ni gani? What are your obligations to government? So the obligations, most important is to keep up-to-date financial records for the activities that you undertake. Why? Because most people in the sector, the players in the sector, in the charity sector generally, you will find that you're dealing with donor money. Kuna wafadhili, kuna wahisani ambao wamekupatia hela. Na hizi hela wamepatia kwa sababu umewaeleza kwamba kuna malengo fulani unataka kutekeleza katika jamii. Na hiyo malengo sio ya kujifaidi mwenyewe. Umesema I want to deal to help the community in a certain way. So you need to have records on how you utilize that money for your sake, for the sake of the beneficiaries, and for the sake of the donor that gave you that money. So those three quarters need to be able to tell whether you really applied those financial resources or the resources generally, what the objectives of the. So you need to have a proper, up-to-date financial records, using financial statements, inventory of assets and liabilities, and the progress report. You need to have those records. The law, the Public Benefit Act, requires you to file returns 6 months, annual returns, 6 months after the end of the financial year. So those are the obligations. You need to notify the authority when you're making material changes. Because during the registration process, umesema sisi tuko register kama Turkana Charity Foundation. We are doing activities XYZ. These are our officials. This is our residential address. So when you change those aspects of the organization, you need to ensure that you notify the authority of all the material changes, so that wanajua kama umebadilisha jina, kama umebadilisha location, kama umefanya uchaguzi ndani ya organization, your officials wamebadilisha. Those are, you need to notify the authority of those changes. Those are the proposals in the regulations. And then generally, the sector, you need to comply with all the laws that govern the sector. So those specific provisions of the Act give you certain specific obligations. So baada ya kusajiliwa inawezekana pia because of many reasons, either because you registered, you came together, we said you need a minimum of 5 members as directors of a public benefit organization. Kuja pamoja, kuna mfadhili ulitembea Ulaya ukakutana na mtu akakueleza kwamba angependa kupatia msaada, ukakuja nyumbani na ile promise ule mfadhili umefanya nyumbani, register the organizations and then ukimgia sina shiki, that's very common. Ameshabadilisha mawazo ama alikuwa anakutania tu ukamfikiria sile. So you have an organization and you are not able to operate because the donors pull out, or you've been operating and the donors pull out. That's very common. You started a project, there was funding in the beginning, then he has pulled out. So the law allows you, once those kind of eventualities come around, for the records, you need to indicate to the authority kwa nini mmeamua tena hamtaki kufanya hii shughuli, so that the authority can, in some instances, may have, because of maybe the funding challenges, you may decide to dissolve, but ukiambia the regulator that since tulikuwa tumekuja pamoja, tulikuwa tunaoperate Turkana, but because of tumeamua kufunga, regulators has approached us and he wants organizations in Turkana that are interested in funding school feeding children, so usifunge. So for those kind of reasons, you need to notify the authority, the regulator, why you've decided to dissolve, so that if it's a reason that can be remedied, then it can be remedied without you having to dissolve the organization. So this is, we've spoken about voluntary deregistration, dissolution, let's call it dissolution. But you can also be forced to, that's when you've, yani kwa hiari yenu mmeamua kudissolve. But pia, because of certain reasons, the government may step in. Like we said before, you may be forced to deregister simply because labda mtu ameenda kotini, akafanya kesi, akashinda. Koti ikapeana order, ikasema, hii organization labda mmeshindwa kuirun. Or one person or a few of the members of the organization feel that the organization is no longer operating within the confines of the law. So you can get a court order that will force registration. If the government, on assessing your activities, ipate that you've engaged in illegal activity, umepata pesa ya donors, umekuja hapa badala ya kuiweka kwa ile miradi ulisema itafanya, you are engaged in cattle trade. Ile soko ya mbuzi pale inaitwa wapi? No, kuna ile ya West Pokot pale. Unanunua mbuzi, unauza na kuweka hela. It's not Kimalel, Baringo. So umeanza kufanya vitu ambazo haziko provided within your constitution. Ama you are outright illegal activity, you are funding terrorism or you are involved in money laundering. Kuna watu wako na pesa chafu, wanataka njia ya kuisafisha. Sasa wewe umekuja umeambia serikali you'll be involved in public benefit activities. Hata serikali imekupatia tax break. Imesema huyu kwa sababu anatusaidia katika malengo yetu, hatutamtoza ushuru. And then you kumbe wewe unasafisha hela. Those illegal money, you are being used as a conduit to bring illegal money to. So for those reasons, you can be forced to register. Once an assessment has been done, you'll be forced to deregister. The government can deregister an organization on those kind of grounds. But even that registration, after you umeshapatikana peupe, you're involved in illegal activity, registration itakuwa mara moja. Ile kama radi utaambiwa vile unaenda mkondo wako hapo sawa. Before the basic step of the registration is arrived at. So those are the proposals in the regulations. So finally, the next slide on. So if for those of you who in the sector, you know that once you operate for a period of time, you may acquire certain assets of the organization. Ile kitu ya kwanza zaidi watu wengi unapata umenunua magari ya shirika. You have like 5 vehicles for the organization. Then you have a furniture that has been helping you run the operations in the offices. Kuna pesa kwenye benki. Maybe you have a little balance of money, but you are either being forced to register or you've decided to dissolve the organization. So, because these are assets that were given purposely to achieve certain objectives, to contribute to some public good. So they are public assets, they were not individual assets. They were your assets that were officials, they were organization assets. So if a decision is reached, you are able to decide or that doing this or you are they need so the government authority has the responsibility of ensuring that those assets are displayed. So first for the decision, you know, identify this is why if you the decision process and identify the people to be served. Yani umepatiwa hiyo jukumu ya kusema just in case I go under ama register my colleagues that are doing the same work as I am ni hawa, na hizi assets za kampuni yetu ningependa zipewe au colleagues wangu sote tuendeleze hiyo kazi. So you're supposed to do that voluntarily, but if you don't do that, then the authority may have to pick another PBO that is involved in similar work that like the one that you are doing for you to be for those assets to be transferred to the authority. Finally, you need to provide the list of all assets and liabilities so that the authority is able to gauge before you are allowed either to resolve whether you've been able to meet your obligations to your suppliers, the debts that you owe the different suppliers, and those kind of things. If you borrowed money, if you been able to pay it before you can resolve. So, one of the very new provisions of this regulations under this act is that the act allows you to engage in certain business activities for the sake of supporting the objectives for which you are registered. Yani, unaweza kufanya biashara kwa kiasi fulani so that you support the objectives for which you are registered. Hii biashara sio biashara ya kujinufaisha, ni biashara inahusiana na yale malengo ambayo ulikuwa umesema utafanya. So there is a limited opportunity to do some businesses, and that is one of the a very deep provisions in this act. Why? Because, as we said, the funding landscape is becoming very unpredictable. Organizations start today, they are up the following year, and some people are left stranded the following year, and some people are left stranded. Ulikuwa umeanza shule, ulikuwa umechukua watoto, umeanza support kwa the education programs, and then when the donor suddenly pulls out, then you are left stranded with an organization with no funding. So the law recognition of that allows public benefit organizations to engage in but we will just look at the plans that let's say you want to you have organizations that then that's we have to invest more in this organization whether and they sort of